Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the student session. I think student session is the critical and important in the school because that we should be able to share some any research resources and content and subject and also research parameter, also creative work parameter. So I think I was very glad to see the all the student work is their qualities become better and better every year and very clear and very sophisticated enough. So yeah, thank you for all the hard work of the student participant. Sorry. Okay, so next one is yeah, special talk. So actually, we invite some Dr. James Murday. So he is a associate director of physical science of USC Washington D.C. Office of Research Advancement. So I believe that not many people know that we have DC office of USC. So I think the Dr. James Murday will share a lot of information, especially for the grant hunting. So that is very important, especially for the faculty group. Okay, so please join me to welcome Dr. Murday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, so let me stop sharing.
You hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, very
Okay.
clear.
All right. So first, thank you for allowing me to make this presentation. For the people who are listening, the Office of Research Advancement was created specifically to help everyone at USC. So what I tell people is that you got to use me, you got to keep me employed, right? So please feel free to get in touch. That being said, I will admit, and I'm sure it's no surprise to you, that opportunities in architecture are much more limited than in many of the areas that I normally deal with, namely in physics and chemistry and engineering. That being said, there are some, and so I'm going to go through very quickly. You will have, I sent the slides, the charts to Junho, and he can distribute them. So don't feel like you have to scribble things down. You can get them from the charts themselves. And you have to consider this presentation as a sort of an introduction to what's available to you. And almost certainly, if you're interested, you will want to follow up, right? I'm not going to give you enough information to sort of carry it through to completion. And I've done that deliberately because of the time available. Okay, now let's see. Okay, thank you. Here's an outline of what I'm going to speak to. The top 4 agencies have at least some programs that would have some, would be somewhat pertinent into architecture. NIST I've included, not because it's going to be a funding agency for you, but because it does have a lot to do with buildings. Then we'll look at not the federal agencies, but at foundation funding and corporate funding, which is actually done by a separate office. So I'll alert you to who to contact to do that. And then lastly, we'll look some at USC assets that are available to assist you. Okay, the next. Come on. Oh, run. Well, let me get my computer open here, and this, we worked through this and it worked fine earlier.
Sometimes the Zoom gets into the way of the PowerPoint, so you have to like move things out of the way.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me.
Jim, I think if you don't mind, actually, I don't think I have the file from you. So you can send it to me, and then I can open it for you. Would it be okay?
Okay. Well, in the moment, I've got to get out of This thing's not even letting me communicate. Okay, so can you shut me off and then I'll re-enter?
Yeah, they're fine. So you have the Zoom link, right?
Basically, I'm frozen for whatever reason.
Okay, I see. So I will send the Zoom link just in case to you directly, so that okay, great. Yeah, you can shut down.
Can I say I've used their office and they were really helpful? While we're waiting for you to come back, Jim, they helped me, even though they didn't know how to do the NEH ones, they helped me write some. And I have to say that it was less likely I would get the grants, but by going through the grant writing process, it helped me clarify my project. And by the way, Jim, it was for the film that I've been traveling for. And remember that grant I wrote? It's now listed on the State Department website, just so you know. So he helped.
Right. Oh, I think something wrong.
Frozen?
Right?
Is he frozen? Wait. He's frozen.
Hey, Kay, can you stop? Can you make a stop sharing? I think you can do that. Oh yes, I can also. Okay, so let me do that.
Is it just stuck?
Maybe I should zoom it.
So, meeting recorded. Okay. So my screen shows that this meeting is being recorded on it. Does that show on yours, or is it just the presentation?
So I think I either record your voice and presentation. So.
Okay, so I think what I'll do is just plunge ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's take a quick look at the National Science Foundation. NSF has got the charter to work with all of science and engineering. And for people in architecture, probably the most pertinent group would be in the Directorate for Engineering. There's a division called Civil, Mechanical, and Manufacturing Innovation. So that would be the place to look. And there's a second place that might have some opportunity, and that's in the chemical, biological, environmental transport systems. And that's because of the word environment, i.e. where a building might be put. So I've put on this slide some illustrative programs that exist that to which there could be an architectural perspective. Now, those that are labeled NSF are programs that have a solicitation due date. There's part of special programs. Those that are listed as PD, program descriptions, are foundational programs that continue every year. And so they don't, you won't face the same kinds of deadlines for those. You know they're going to be recurring. And at the very bottom of the chart, I have something I call looking ahead. What that is to remind me and you both that NSF is likely to get a very significant increase in monies. The presidential budget for 2022, and this is a budget, this is a presidential request. So it's far from a done deal. It's got to go through Congress. But that request is 20% increase in the NSF. So there's going to be a lot of extra money there. And one of the things that NSF and the rest of the nation is concerned about is in microelectronics. I'm sure you've seen the chip problems in automotive that where they can't make cars because they don't have the chips put in it. So if anybody's interested in clean rooms and production facilities, there might be some opportunities there. And as you see at the very bottom of the screen, there's a specific example where NSF has funded a project in the past, although that was uh, almost 20 years ago. On the other hand, we're back in roughly the same position we were 20 years ago in terms of what we expect. Department of Energy has a basic research program, but its focus is almost entirely on computation, on in the biological environment, on energy, solar, materials that would go into nuclear reactors. There is, on the other hand, an applied office, and that's in the Office of Energy Efficiency, and it specifically has one addressing buildings. So here you see the URL for that particular office and a listing of the kinds of opportunities that they address. And I'd point out to you in the bottom of the chart, you see that if you wanted to sign up, there is a newsletter they send around so you could get alerts to when new opportunities were coming online. I can also provide those to you, as Junho can tell you. I send him
Sure.
regular emails trying to alert him to opportunities that would be useful. And I can add you to the appropriate parts of the distribution list if you ask for them. Oh, joy. Guess what? I'm frozen again. Okay, this is.
So, Jim, can you send the file to me so that I can flip over on my computer?
Yeah.
The pages.
Okay, so what I'm going to, but my apologies. I am
No problem.
just entirely frozen, so I'm going to again have to shut down all the way and then bring myself back up.
Okay.
Scott had a question about when.
I don't know, and maybe something June you can answer though too, because I have looked at some of these, and I was wondering, you know, because some of them are sudden deadlines, like 4 weeks. You got to put in a grant. You know.
Yeah, I think I answered your question. So you're asking if there is any specific season, right? Any specific season of deadlines. So yeah, NSF used to have one, but still NSF have some specific program still have some still based on some deadline the timeline, but the 70% of program they eliminate all the deadlines. So it means that you can submit anytime you want.
Oh, interesting.
But DOE is still the deadline basis. So yeah, it is more strict. And then and my understanding, if I remember correctly, all the research money, federal research money, the budget wise, 55% of budget go for DoD defense, and then about so and the NIH, they take about 25 or 30, and remained budget will go to NSF and DOE. So relatively, as compared to DoD defense, the NSF and DOE is a kind of some minority in the current size. Even though I tried once for DoD defense, but it is really hard. Actually, as compared to DoD, NSF is a very transparent review process, but DoD, unfortunately, not much. So, but funding size-wise, DoD is best. Yeah. Okay, welcome back. Jim, you are muted. We cannot hear you.
Okay, before I start, what I want to do is go back and do what you asked, and send you the file.
Yeah, copy. Yes, please.
That's just so if I get frozen again, or if you run out of time, you can send the file to people with the instructions.
Okay, sure.
You should touch base with me.
Okay, sure, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. see your office, presentation.
Hey, James, do you
Yeah.
still help coordinate like the grants? So like if like a faculty member wanted, I know you said that you don't have as much experience with some of the more humanities driven grants, but your office was pretty helpful, at least with coordinating letters of recommendation and things like that. And I thought that might be useful for faculty here to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So I tell you, one of the, let me do the following, since this seems to be not cooperating very much. Junho, I did send you the file.
Yes, just right. Okay, so let me open it and then I will share it for you. Okay, so. Okay, can you see the screen?
I can see
Right.
it.
Okay, great.
What I
So,
would suggest is go all the way to the last file, the last chart, and then we'll
Last
come
chart.
back.
this one?
So what the point that was just made is, what can we do for you? And Mina was pointing out that there are a number of services that the DC office can provide to you. We have people, and you can see at the very bottom, we have writers, we have people who know about submitting to the various funding agencies so they know what's expected, and they can help you make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. The writers themselves are very good at the final draft stage of making sure that the English is right, making sure that you haven't left something out. And while I won't pretend to be an expert in architecture, if you wanted to use me in drafts, I can give you a pretty good feel of whether your draft is reading well or not. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to go into the details, understand the details of it, but I can follow whether you've got a coherent argument and whether I think you're making a decent case. That I can help you with. Okay, so now with all of that said, that was my final view graph. Now let's skip up and pick up at where DOE was in. Okay, there we go. All right, so there's the buildings, and the next chart is an explicit. So yeah, I think
yeah.
you're gonna have to change it from your end.
Yeah, right. So go to next page. So the DOE.
Okay,
And
so, and one more.
sure.
Okay, so this is to alert you if you are interested in the energy aspects of buildings. There are a set of symposium workshops that are coming up. And so you see the dates and times at the bottom of this chart. So if you wanted to learn more about what the Office of Energy Efficiency in Buildings is interested in, you have an opportunity to interact with them directly, right? So you got the details on this chart. Next one. Homeland Security will have some interest if you are addressing infrastructure and resiliency, which again is part of what architecture does, right? Because you have to worry about that. And so I've listed some of the current projects and programs that the Department of Homeland Security has an interest in. And you go there and see if there's something that looks to be pertinent to what you would like to do. And if so, get in touch with me and we can follow up on that. Next chart. EPA I wouldn't recommend EPA for the moment because it is still recovering from what the Trump administration did to it. But the EPA does have research grants, and it would have ecosystems and sustainability interests, again, something that architecture does get involved with. Next chart. I told you that I would show you something from NIST. Now, this is not a funding opportunity, but it is a resource opportunity. that if you haven't run across, you probably want to at least take a look at. So you've got the URL there, and you can see the kinds of information that NIST provides. When I say that NIST is not a funding agency, it does fund some projects, but I've never seen the buildings and construction people have an open BAA. Other parts of NIST have done so. Next chart. Now, the next two are out of my bailiwick in the sense that research advancement was created at USC to address the federal agencies. And we are explicitly told to stay out of corporate and foundation. And that's because we don't want to have people accidentally stepping on one another. So if you're interested in corporate or foundation funding, Hussein Parmand is the right person to touch base with, right? And he has, you can see from the chart there, he has a number of professionals that help him do that. And then if you want to go into the next one, this is the foundation team. Again, a number, he's got a group of people, and some of those are actually housed in the schools, right? So I believe architecture has one. So if we go to the next chart. So here are the people. I told you what this was going to do is make you aware of what your resources are. All right, so here is Steve Molden, who deals with the National Institutes of Health. And I looked there, I didn't see very much associated with buildings at NIH, no big surprise. We have Al Olson, who deals with the intelligence communities. And again, I didn't see much there. I think architecture would be engaged with. But the other federal agencies I had to get involved with. And so you've got me as a point of contact. And then for the University Advancement Office, Hussein, and his email, and then there's in the School of Architecture, there's an assistant dean for advancement, right? Who's your local person. Okay, next slide. There are a number of resources that if you have not taken advantage of, I would encourage you to do so. There are a suite of training workshops and presentations, and I've got them listed there. Some of them are called training workshop presentations. Then some are called Center of Excellent Research, but again, they're training workshops and presentations too. They're just bundled in a different spot on that website. But again, you can take advantage of those resources to help you. Next chart. And now we're down at the end one, which says this is the services that I had skipped down to at the very beginning to make sure that if we got in trouble, you at least had a chance to see that. Okay, let me stop now, and I'm more than happy to answer questions or interact with anybody who would be interested.
Okay, great. So yes, any questions from the audience? So actually, I have a question for Jim. So yeah, in many cases, actually, for NSF, even federal and non-federal grant program, many grant agencies require the interdisciplinary research. So if I'm lucky and get to know some people in other discipline, yeah, that is perfect. But in some other cases, even though, for example, I'd like to know somebody in a CAP, but in some cases, I have no connection at all, even though I asked for one. So in that case, can I check with you to ask for some help to introduce somebody in that discipline?
Yes, please do. Part of what we are hired at the vice president research level. And when I was hired on, I asked if I should join a department, and I was told explicitly no, because I was to serve everybody at the university, and they didn't want to even have an impression that I might be biased towards one. So we deal across all of USC. That gives us a handle on other people. And so if you come to us and ask for some suggestions, we can identify not only people at USC, but on occasion we've gone out and tried to do that nationally when someone asks us to do it. That's part of the things that we can do for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. And another follow-up question is that actually the video help, I was able to know we have some staff available who can provide some the editing or some writing assistance. So how much earlier than the deadline we should provide our kind of some a quality draft, proposal draft for you to read, to review?
The obvious answer is as early as possible.
Right.
But let me be a little more definitive on that. The reason I say as early as possible is because since we serve the entire university, we do get obligations from other people. And there are times when, especially when a major center proposal is due, where we get eaten alive trying to get that one proposal put to bed. So if you were to call me the week that that's happening and you were to call, you'd probably get a, I can't help you right now, right? But if you become aware that you're going to be interested in something and you make contact with us and say, hey, I'm looking towards something, I'm going to need a proposal put together, it's due in a month. Now we can start to build a calendar. We can start to reserve time for you because we know what's coming, right? And so we can give you some preference. If you were to reach me just out of the blue, on a normal day, I can turn it around in about 24 hours.
Okay, great.
And the other piece that would be important to mention is that there are two kinds of services, if you remember what I told you. One is something that I can do, which is more sort of logic flow. Does your proposal read well? It's better if you get to me earlier at the rough draft stage. And I encourage people to do that at the rough draft stage. Because if I'm going to offer anything that is really useful to you, it will be something that you'll need to rewrite. And you're not going to do that if the proposal is due the next day, right? If what you're wanting is just sort of a final read through and make sure that all the English is correct, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and right, that kind of thing, then a couple of days, provided there's forewarning and the people know it's coming, right? A couple of days is fine. But you can't wait. It's pot luck. If you wait till the last minute and you throw it and say, hey, I need this by tomorrow. Okay, if it's a light week, probably can do that. If it's a busy week, maybe not.
We have some important questions in the chat. One of which is Scott brings up a very important point. Considering that this symposium is about change, wellness, social justice, and things like that. In the past, the university, they actually did help me, and I was part-time. Your office did help me, but is there an overt policy and support for part-time faculty research grants? Many of these grants are awarded over a certain number of years. What is the policy for part-timers to apply? That's one question. And the other question I think is important for everyone to know is, if you do win a big grant, what is the percentage that USC takes from that grant?
Okay, so in answer to the first, or let me answer the second. The percentage that the university takes is my honest answer to that is I don't know. You're going to have to go in and look at the overhead. I mean, there are certain overhead charges that the university levies. I know that our office is entirely free to you, right? We don't charge you anything for our help. But there are overhead charges that if somebody gets funded by an external program, there's overhead charges that have to be built into the proposal. And I'm not sure exactly what those numbers are. Now, as for part-time versus full-time, our success stories are when money comes into the university. So if a part-time person brings the money in, we are just as happy as if a full-time person brings it in, right? So there should be no impediment whether you're part-time or full-time.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Good. Yes. Thank you so much, Jim. I think it did really informative. So actually, the ADR, I frequently got some information, request and also question from my many colleagues in the School of Architecture. So actually, these days, there are many faculty, more number of faculty who try to get funded from federal program. So in that case, when I have so many difficulties to answer or difficulties to assist our colleagues, yeah, please let me find you and then a little bit bothering you to get some help from you.
Tongue in cheek, let me leave you with the story. I mentioned to you that we were hired literally to help you. And if some of you looked at the first chart, you noted that I've worked for the federal government for some 40 years. I've been almost closing in on 20 years now at the university. Question is, what the hell am I doing still working? And in parts because I enjoy doing this, but tongue in cheek, just to help you remember, is my wife doesn't like me working from home. She wants me at the office. So if you don't keep me employed, she will personally call you and ream you out for not doing your job of making sure I stay employed.
Okay. That is a very motivating story. Yeah, I like that. Okay, great. Okay, thank you for your time again. Yeah, okay. And then, yeah, so let me stay in touch. And then, yeah, so yeah, please give him a big hand for his support. Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you
so much. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, so let me put my mic forward to the Faiza for the next program.